Hi, I'm Dr. John Demartini. I'm a human behavioral specialist and consultant and educator and author. Today, we're going to be doing something amazing. We're going to be talking about how you can take your business to another level, how to help people be engaged, how to live really meaningful and prioritized lives so they can be the most productive individuals. I've spent decades doing whatever I can to help people do exactly that so they can have a masterful life, a productive life, so they can be of service and live a prosperous outcome. On this show coming up, we're going to be addressing that and more.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives. Hey, would you do me a quick favor? Send me a quick note and let me know. You can do it through or DM me through one of the big social media outlets and tell us what platform you listen to us on. Is it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or one of the other apps? Tell us one of your favorite episodes as well, and I'm going to pick a winner and give a prize of about $1,500 worth of value. All right, let me ask you, what do you need to do to up-level your leadership? As a listener of this show, there's a pretty good chance that you have taken the time to examine your values. The question is, are you in integrity with those values? Now, we've all known people, more specifically leaders, who don't appear to be in integrity with those values. But here's something to consider. Are they actually out of integrity with their stated values while being completely in integrity with a set of values that you, I, and often themselves are not aware of? Well, stay tuned because that's where we're going on today's show. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. Curious to know more? Simply go to dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com. We always need your help in staying relevant, so please get over to wherever it is you tune into us from and do us a favor, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. We really appreciate if you do that. If you are a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, and we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. You can also catch us on Google Home or Alexa by simply saying, play Dov Baron podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader today, we are confronted with many issues. Some are old and others appear to be more contemporary. There's the advantages and potential threats of AI, there's technology, the supply chain, and any number of other things. However, there is one constant, and that is people. Who are you? And who are the people that you work with are all very important questions. However, what has become increasingly important question is what drives the people who you work with and who work around you? How do you and I as leaders find out what drives them and what they genuinely value? Well, let's find out together because our guest today is Dr. John Demartini. He is a researcher, author, and global educator, and is considered one of the world's leading authorities on human behavior, leadership, and entrepreneurialism. He has researched and studied over 30,000 books across the defined academic disciplines and is the founder of the Demartini Institute and has been teaching for multiple decades. He is the author of more than 40 books that have been published and translated into 29 languages. One of those books is called The Values Factor. Dr. Demartini speaks around the world to large multinational organizations, to government and private organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome Dr. John Demartini. And the crowd goes wild, Josh. Good to have you. It's good to have you with us. It's good. So, I always like to start off with this question because I think it's important. I think that oftentimes we start off on the wrong foot when it comes to solving problems. So in the context of leadership development, what do you believe is the question we should be looking for answers to that we're often not? We might be skipping over it.
Well, you said it quite beautifully in your intro. Thank you. One question that's a wise question is, what is the highest priority action I can do right now with the resources I have that will serve the greatest number of people in the most efficient manner?
Okay.
Because if we don't fill our day with the highest priority actions, entropy forces us to fill it with low priority distractions. And we're most productive, we're most executive, we're most empowered if we stick to priority.
So that's a very important piece. Priority. Priority is something that I don't think people understand fully because they get caught in the emergency as opposed to the priority. And the emergency is, I'm really hungry. The emergency is, this fire is going on and we've got to go put it out. But priority is, as you would say, and certainly talk a lot about in your books, priority is based on who we are at a values level. Let's sort of take a bit of a dive into that because, no, as you say, no one goes to work simply because they value the company. They go to work to fulfill what they value the most. So let's talk about that first in the context of priority.
Every human being, regardless of gender spectrum, age, or culture, lives moment by moment by a set of unique priorities that are fingerprint specific. And those priorities, that set of values, determines how they perceive the world, how they make decisions in the world, and how they act. And in that hierarchy, whatever is highest on the value, they are spontaneously inspired from within, intrinsically to act upon and fulfill. But as they go down the list of those priorities, they progressively are derivative and they end up having extrinsic motivation needed, rewards, punishments, to get them to act. And extrinsic motivation is a symptom, never a solution for mastery and business.
Right.
And when people don't know what they value because they're comparing themselves to others and injecting the values of others and trying to fit into the herd instead of being unique and stand out, they can cloud the clarity of what they feel is their calling, their mission, their primary vision, their highest priority, and try to be somebody they're not and be second at somebody else instead of being first to who they are. A leader has a responsibility to know what that is, not only in themselves, but everyone in their circle of influence, their employees, their customers, their stockholders, shareholders, even the ecological people that are impacted today, their family. A master in communication is one who cares enough about other human beings to communicate and articulate tactfully and respectfully what they want, what they believe will be most fulfilling and productive in the world, that solves problems in a way that fulfills other people's values. If you don't mind, I'd love to share an example.
Please.
Jeff Bezos has online a little video dealing with Sony. Many people have seen this. And he talked about Sony having a desire many years ago not to be the number one company, but to actually put Japan on the market to try to transform its image for copycats into leaders of quality.
Mm-hmm.
And he realized that in Amazon, he wanted to create a quality customer service orientation. So he really focused on the customer. But what he did is he maybe slighted a bit the employees.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of it, they retaliated and eventually created a union and eventually asked for more to get that in equilibrium. Our brain is a homeostat with negative feedback loops at all scales, designed for equity between others and equanimity within ourselves, authenticity and integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't listen to it because we're impulsively run by our amygdala, we tend to skew our perceptions of what people need and how we're going to deliver it. And we overlook things which create symptoms as feedback to guide us back into equanimity and equity, because that's what's sustainable. If we get narcissistic and don't care about the customer, we don't meet their needs, we get humbled. If we get altruistic and sacrifice the customer, we lose profits. Either one of them act as feedback mechanisms to guide us to have a sustainable, non-zero-sum game, fair exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, our brain is intuitively being guided back to that for every person who's involved in that company. And the real leader is aware enough, wisely expanded enough to encompass all of those people and think with foresight, the forebrain, on what are their needs. And if they can meet those needs, they have sustainable companies that are unstoppable because everybody's participating and wanting to engage in it. And that is powerful leadership at the highest level. Autocracy is a byproduct of a narcissistic assumption that they know what the customer needs,
Right.
and they know what the employees need, and it backfires.
So let's examine that for a minute, because there has been, you and I have been around for a while, and there's been for a long, long time, there's been a lot of talk about values, more specifically corporate values. And you say that we are approaching this wrong, and that how can organizations get it right? Because I think that, I've talked about this many times. I've talked about it on stage and events, and I know you have. There's these values on the wall. Enron had values on the wall that are out of context with what they're actually doing. So they're saying our corporate values are this, but the question for me is not whether you put the values on the wall, but how are they getting to these values that you say is the wrong approach? Walk us through that a little bit, if you could.
They're creating social idealisms and moral hypocrisies that are inevitably going to, fall. They're not going to work. I was speaking at a company. I'm not going to give names. It's a big company. It's an energy exploration company. Mm-hmm. And they had, again, the mission statement and values all put out where everybody could see it. There's a nice PR move by somebody.
Sure.
But I asked all the employees at the little restaurant that was nearby if they knew what they were and what did they think, and did they think the company was related to it in any way. And I didn't find one person that even knew them, could, had them memorized or anything. There's nobody there that had anything to do with it. It was just something on the wall. It was a nice exercise by some consulting company. Your life demonstrates your values. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you say. I'm interested in what you're living.
Yeah.
How you fill your space, how you actually spend your time, what exactly energizes you, how you're dispersing your money. What are you really, really organized on? Where are you spontaneously disciplined at? What are you thinking about, visualizing and affirming inside your head about how you want your life that shows evidence of coming true? What are you conversing spontaneously with other people about? What is it that inspires you and literally brings tears to your eyes thinking about it? What is it that you've had that's a persistent, consistent goal that's actually coming true? And what is it you spontaneously want to learn about? If you look carefully and you look at that, it has a pattern and it will reveal what's intrinsically important to the individual. And the values of a company, in my opinion, are artificial. It is the values of the people that matter. And the articulation of an individual who's a leader in terms of those individuals that they delegate to and communicate with is the mastery of the game. If you don't respect, we go to a seminar on customer service and we have to go and do sales programs and we have to meet the dominant buying motive of that individual. We know we need to meet their needs.
Yes.
But we don't think that everything is a sale. Every employee has to be sold on the mission of the company and the vision of the company. And if we don't know what their values are and don't know how to articulate to them in their values, they're not going to be engaged. That's why I developed a screening mechanism and an inspiring mechanism based on values, not artificial ones, not collective ones where everybody's supposed to be the same, which is delusional, but to actually individualize, master that skill. I brought it into educational systems. And I've shown how you can engage kids in education and learning. I brought it into companies and they've seen the impact of it. It's not that difficult. It's just actually an expression of respecting human beings.
So let's talk about that at a practical level for a moment for our listener. So for our listener who's going, okay, how do I start this process of eliciting the values of the people who are direct reports to me? How do I start eliciting those values and put them together collectively in a way that is not only comprehensible, but practical and applicable?
Well, I don't mean to be commercial, but I have that laid out on my website. So if people want to do that, drdemartini.com, there's a value determination process that any company can use. It's free, it's private. So that's available for people. But I've gone into a company like Investec Corporation in South Africa, and we did 200 to 800 people at a time because they have a large body of people. And we went through methodically asking 13 questions to help narrow that down. And all the pitfalls of people lying to themselves, writing down what they wish it would be, hope it would be in these answers, and make sure their life is, objectively demonstrating it. Imagine a drone looking over you. Is that really what they're seeing? Or because I don't want you to write something it's not to your advantage. You won't be fulfilled if you're writing down something that's untrue. So there's a step-by-step questioning process that takes about 30 minutes that anybody can do. And it helps them kind of get the light bulb go on. And it makes them look at what their life really demonstrates, not what they hope it would be or wish it would be or think it should be or supposed to be according to what society says or the leader says. What does your life demonstrate? That's the starting point. Because if you're not integrity on that answer, you're lying to yourself from day one. Then one very powerful question, if you're about to hire somebody and screen somebody, there's a normal screening process you go through. I'm not negating any of that. But now you've got the candidate there. And now you've got the job description with all the action steps they're going to be doing daily. And now you have their values. And you got the top three. The top one is the one that their identity revolves around the most, but the top three are what they live most of the time. If I ask the question, I'm about to hire somebody, Mrs. Jones, how is doing this particular job duty helping you fulfill what you value most? If they pause for a quarter of a second and have to move their eyes, looking and scanning in their eyes to find an answer, it's an X. There's a disengagement. If they can see immediately how that job duty is going to help them fulfill what is most meaningful to them, they're going to be a theory Y, as McGregor says, not a theory X. They will be intrinsically acting upon that action without having to be motivated, without having to be micromanaged. Then I go to the next action step and I go through and I ask it. And this is only on the people that are the real candidates that potentially might be selected.
Right.
And I go down that list of job duties. If 20% or more are X's, I stop. Don't waste more time on it. But if 80% or more are all checks, that means they're congruent. You now have a potential candidate. You still need to check the references and do all the other things. But that means that they can perceive that what's going to be required from them is going to help them fulfill what's most deeply meaningful to them. And when people go to work and they're engaged, that's all what engagement is. If they're engaged, their productivity, their innovation, their feelings of ownership, because whatever's highest on their value, they feel is theirs. They feel ownership and they respect the company, they respect the client, they respect the services, the resources differently when it's theirs. But we go through there and we check that. And I've been tested on this on many occasions by companies to see, can you really select somebody that efficient up for foresight? And it's mind blowing. So you can determine whether somebody's going to be engaged and inspired in that job before you've even hired them.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. But we don't take the time to care enough about somebody. Sometimes we urgently hire somebody and just gamble on the probabilities, but it's more cost effective to find out what they really are intrinsically called to do and find out how they do it. Now, if they've already been hired and they've not been screened that way, and maybe they're not as productive as you like, you can also, because of operant conditioning and Pavlovian conditioning, you can also help them by asking that same question: how can this job help you fulfill what's meaningful? And if you're skilled as a facilitator to help them see that, you can take people that are less engaged and increase their engagement in a very quick period of time. I've done 200 or more people at one time doing that and increase performance and engagement literally. And when they finish the exercise, their engagement goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is easily to measure. You can measure it with your own KPIs before and after. It's a simple exercise. But people go to work to fulfill what they value most. If they think that the job description and the mission, vision, and primary objectives of the company are going to help them do that, they can't wait to go to work. And when people can't wait to go to work and be of service, people can't wait to get that service.
That's true. However, let me just push back a little bit, because I agree with everything you just said. And there's one proviso, and that is this. You and I have been doing this for a long time. We both know that people are not as self-aware as they often like to think that they are. And sometimes people lie, and it's what I was saying in the intro. People sometimes lie not because they're maliceful, but because they don't know, because they've not self-examined. They haven't really asked themselves, what is my priority in life? What is it that matters to me? So for the person listening to, for the viewer, the listener who is watching this, who's saying, yeah, okay, well, let's say I even tried that, but how come this person didn't work out? How do we get to that, getting people to, they don't even know they're lying to themselves?
Well, the questionnaire that I just mentioned is a self-feedback system.
Yeah.
It kind of catches it, because if there's not a pattern in there, and there's no way they're going to know what these questions or know what these, you can't fake the answers, just like you can't fake the responses. When somebody asks you, how's it going to help you fulfill it? You can't prepare and know what that's going to be. You can't just rattle that off, because your body language will show it in your dilation of your eyes. It'll show it in the enthusiasm of how you speak. It'll show it in your body language. It's not hard to, I've trained people, tons of people and consultants on this. It's so easy to learn. So it's not hard to catch them in BS. And when they answer the questions, if they do try to do that, the pattern won't be there. And
no, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not
there's,
saying they're BSing. I'm saying my point here is that they're not BSing. These are, so I'll give you an example. I was being asked to consult on a political leader, and they said, is this person telling the truth? And my answer was yes and no. And they said, well, how is that possible? This person believes this, but it's not true. So they believe it. And so, from micro cues and dilation of pupils and all the, things that you and I would know, this person absolutely believes it's the truth, but factually it's not true. That's the challenge. Is I think that a lot of people tell the things they think are true.
The difference is the questions you're asking them if they try to deny or dodge or whatever, it won't show a pattern. It catches it. I've been doing it 43 years.
Mhm.
It catches it. So it's not just an ad hoc thing I tried this week. Something
No,
I've
I'm
been
not
doing
suggesting
43
it
years.
is. I'm not suggesting it is.
But
What
what
I'm
it-
suggesting is that they might not know that they're BSing.
But it catches them. It catches them in their own BS. That's what I'm, because I've had to go through. And if I ask somebody what their values are, I guarantee they're going to give you social idealisms. They're going to give what they would like it to be. They're going to give.
Yeah.
That's not what this exercise is. This exercise is an observation of what you're actually doing with your life, not what you wish it would be, not what you hope it will be, not what you want it to be, but what are you actually doing?
Mhm.
What are you actually living? And that's the difference, because the idealism, they guarantee they'll be delusioned. But when you actually look at what their life is demonstrating, you'll catch them.
Yep.
And that's the difference. That's I've had, because I had to deal with the listing of values back many years ago. And
Sure.
I found that people were BS experts. They were
Yeah.
lying to themselves and writing down what they thought society wanted and what the CEO wanted. They can't do that on this exercise.
Right.
What they're doing is they're holding themselves accountable, because the pattern will show itself all the way through
Mhm.
if it's honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is one of the great challenges is not that. I mean, I think there are definitely people who are maliceful and want to lie, but I think the good majority of people are just ignorant about themselves.
don't know.
Yeah, they don't know. Yeah, they don't
No,
know. So they say that
because
they think it
if you
should be.
ask them, if you ask them right on the spot, what is it you value most? I guarantee, I've been doing this for years, decades. They will tell you whatever they think their authorities want them to write.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's not the exercise. The exercise is, what do you actually look at your day and how are you actually spending your time? Let's take a look at it day by day by day. How are you spending your time? Be honest with it. Let's look at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at what you keep in your space. In my space right here, my computer's in front of me pretty well all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So if I look at what my space is filled with, it's a computer. If I look at what the dominant use of that computer is, it's telecommunication. I'm speaking with it. I'm educating or researching with it. So there's ways of narrowing it down. And that's what the questions do. They narrow it down to look at what your life is demonstrating, it's not asking, what would you like your time to be spent on? It's not asking what you wish you could fill your space with. It's what's actually there. Yeah. And if they try to lie about one of them, the other ones catch them, because it's not the same pattern. There will be a pattern there if it's honest.
This is great, John. We're already very close to the end of part one of our two-part delicious conversation here with Dr. John Demartini. John, before we close up this part, please tell people where they can find out more about you, about all the resources you have. I know you've got 147,000 books that you've written. Not quite, but getting that way. So please tell people where they can find out more about you and all the wonderful resources that you have.
The simplest way to just get access to what I'm doing is simply drdemartini.com, DRDEMARTINI.com. And on there is the value determination process. It's complimentary and private. There's a plethora of information on there. There's thousands of podcasts, webinars, television, radio, newspapers, magazines. There's tons of stuff. There's an educational website. There's also live things you can go to and online products and stuff. Anything that you want, you let yourself just browse and just be yourself, and let your intuition, your own heart guide the pathway.
Okay.
I have nothing to sell in there. You'll find something that matches where you're at if you go on the website.
Well,
but that's
fabulous.
the easiest way to get hold of it.
We will make sure that the link is, of course, is posted inside of the show notes, along with any social media connections. We'll put all that in there for you so that you can find out how to reach out to Dr. John Demartini and find out all of his resources. We will be back in just one click. Until then, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about the truth about what you value based on your priorities. We'll see you in one click. Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.